The security cameras caught her first. A tiny figure, barely taller than the iron gate itself, standing motionless in the cold night air. Her clothes were too thin. Her shoes were gone. And in her arms, she was holding a baby. At exactly 2:17 a.m., outside one of the most expensive mansions in the city, a millionaire's life quietly split into before and after. Ethan Caldwell had built his fortune from nothing, from sleepless nights, from deals that broke weaker men, from a world where emotions were liabilities, and trust was a mistake you only made once. At 42, he had everything people dreamed of: a private estate on the hill, a fleet of cars he barely drove, rooms so large they echoed when he walked through them alone. Yet that night, Ethan wasn't thinking about money. He was staring at a security monitor, frozen. "Is this real?" he whispered. The head of security leaned closer to the screen. "It looks like a child, sir." The image zoomed in. A little girl, no more than 6 years old. Her arms were trembling, not from fear, from exhaustion. The baby in her arms was wrapped in a thin, worn blanket, too big for its tiny body, too small to keep the cold out. The child adjusted her grip, wincing as if her muscles were screaming in pain. She didn't cry. She didn't knock. She just stood there, waiting. Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. "Why hasn't she pressed the bell?" he asked. No one answered. The little girl's head drooped forward for a moment, then snapped back up as if she were forcing herself to stay awake. That was when Ethan noticed it. Her eyes. They weren't curious. They weren't scared. They were trained, like someone who had learned very early in life that survival depended on staying alert. "Open the gate," Ethan said suddenly. "Sir," security hesitated. This could be dangerous. Ethan didn't take his eyes off the screen. "She's carrying a baby," he said quietly. "If that's dangerous, then something is already very wrong." The gate slid open with a low mechanical hum. The sound echoed through the night. The girl flinched, but she didn't run. She took one small step forward, then another. Each step looked harder than the last. Ethan met her at the entrance himself. No bodyguards, no assistants, just him. Up close, the sight was even worse. Her knees were scraped raw. Her hands were red and swollen. Her lips were cracked from dehydration. The baby let out a weak sound, a sound that barely deserved to be called a cry. Ethan knelt instinctively. "Hey, sweetheart," he said, his voice softer than it had been in years. "You're safe now." The girl looked at him, really looked at him, and then she asked a question that made his breath catch in his throat. "Can we sleep here tonight?" she whispered. "Just one night. I promise we'll leave in the morning." Something broke inside Ethan Caldwell. He reached out slowly, careful not to scare her. "What's your name?" he asked. The girl hesitated. People who were used to kindness didn't hesitate. "Lily," she finally said. "And this is my brother." "Noah." "Brother." Ethan glanced down at the baby. The child's face was pale. Too pale. His breathing was shallow, uneven. "How long have you been outside?" Ethan asked. Lily shrugged. "A long time." Children only answered like that when they had lost track of days. Inside the mansion, the warmth hit them instantly. Lily stiffened, her eyes darting around as if she were expecting someone to yell at her for stepping on the marble floor. "No shoes," she said quickly, backing up. "I can wait outside." "It's okay." Ethan swallowed hard. "No," he said firmly. "You're staying." The staff moved quickly. Blankets, water, food, a call to the house doctor. But Lily didn't relax. Not even when she sat on the couch. Not even when she sipped warm soup. She kept glancing toward the doors, as if someone might burst in at any moment and drag them away. Later that night, after Lily finally fell asleep sitting upright, still holding Noah, Ethan stood alone in his study. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Something about this wasn't right. Children didn't wander onto private estates in the middle of the night with babies unless they were running from something. Ethan instructed security to review nearby street footage. Every camera, every angle. What they found made his blood run cold. Lily had been walking for hours. No adult with her. No vehicle dropping her off. Just a tiny girl, carrying a baby nearly half her size, moving steadily toward a mansion, as if she knew exactly where she was going, as if this place was her last option. At 6:03 a.m., Ethan was woken by shouting. "Sir!" A guard yelled from the hallway. "You need to come outside now." Ethan's heart sank before he even stood up. He knew. Somehow he knew. Outside the gates, red and blue lights flashed against the stone walls. Police cars. Too many of them. An officer stepped forward as Ethan approached. "Mr. Caldwell." The officer said gravely, "We need to ask you some questions about the children inside your house." Ethan's mouth went dry. "Why?" he asked. The officer hesitated, then said words Ethan would never forget. "Because those children were reported missing, and the people looking for them." The officer glanced back at the patrol cars. "Are already on their way." Ethan turned slowly toward the house, toward the room where Lily and Noah were sleeping peacefully for the first time in who knows how long. And that was the moment he realized. Bringing them inside hadn't ended the nightmare. It had only just begun. But what the police would uncover next would leave everyone questioning who the real danger truly was. The police didn't rush in. They didn't shout. That was what made it worse. They stood at the gate, hands resting near their belts, eyes fixed on a mansion like it was hiding something dangerous inside. Ethan felt the weight of every second pressing down on his chest. "Reported missing?" he said slowly. "They came here on their own. A child and a baby. No one followed them." The officer nodded, but his expression didn't soften. "That's what worries us, sir." Inside, Lily stirred. She woke the way soldiers do, instantly alert. Her eyes flew open. Her arms tightened around Noah. The sound of police radios filtered through the walls. Her breathing changed. Shallow. Fast. She slid off the couch without making a sound and moved toward the door, peeking out just enough to see flashing lights through the windows. Her face drained of color. "No," she whispered. The word wasn't fear. It was resignation. Ethan found her standing there. "Lily," he said gently, crouching to her level, "the police are here to help." She shook her head. Hard. "No," she said. "They'll take him." Ethan froze. "Take who?" She looked down at Noah, then back up at Ethan. "They always do." The officer stepped inside moments later. He knelt too. Soft voice. Careful movements. "Hey there," he said. "I'm Officer Ramirez. What's your name?" Lily didn't answer. She shifted Noah slightly, turning her body so she was between the baby and everyone else. That single movement told Ethan everything. This child wasn't just a sister. She was a shield. "Sir," another officer whispered to Ethan, pulling him aside. "We ran facial recognition on nearby cameras." Ethan's pulse quickened. And these kids have been flagged before. Multiple times. Different locations. Ethan's stomach dropped. "Abandoned?" The officer hesitated. "Not exactly." A paramedic arrived next. Then another. They insisted on checking the baby. Lily panicked. "No needles," she cried, backing away. "He's fine. I kept him warm. I fed him." "With what?" the paramedic asked gently. Lily hesitated, then whispered, "Water." The room went silent. The paramedic's face hardened, not with anger, but fear. "How long has he been drinking only water?" Lily didn't answer. She didn't need to. The doctor looked at Ethan. "We need to take the baby to the hospital. Now!" Lily screamed. She clutched Noah so tightly the paramedic had to stop. "He'll die without me," she cried. "He always cries when I'm gone." Ethan stepped forward. "She goes with him," he said firmly, "or no one goes." The room paused. Finally, the paramedic nodded. "All right, together." The ambulance doors slammed shut. The siren cut through the morning air. Ethan followed in his car, heart pounding louder than the engine. At the hospital, the doctors moved fast. Too fast. Vitals. Monitors. Whispered conversations that stopped when Lily looked up. One doctor pulled Ethan aside. "How old did she say she was?" the doctor asked. 6, Ethan replied. The doctor's jaw tightened. She has the stress markers of someone twice that age. Tests came back. Not normal. Not even close. Severe malnutrition. Dehydration. Signs of prolonged neglect. And something else. Something that made the pediatric specialist go quiet. There are scars, she said carefully. Not accidental. Old. Repeated. Ethan's hands curled into fists. On the baby? The doctor shook her head. On the girl? Lily sat in a chair outside the ER, feet dangling above the floor. A social worker approached with a soft smile. Lily, can you tell me where your parents are? Lily stared at the floor. They said they'd come back. When? She shrugged. A long time ago. The social worker's pen paused. Who told you to go to Mr. Caldwell's house? Lily looked up. For the first time, real fear flashed across her face. I wasn't supposed to tell, she whispered. The baby's heart monitor spiked. Doctors rushed in. Doors slammed. Lily jumped to her feet. Ethan grabbed her shoulders gently. He's getting help, he said. He's safe. She looked at him like she wasn't sure she believed that word anymore. People say that, she whispered. Then they disappear. Hours passed. Finally, a doctor emerged. The baby is stable, she said. But there's something you need to know. Ethan braced himself. We believe these children were moved repeatedly. Not homeless. Hidden. Hidden from who? Ethan asked. The doctor lowered her voice. The system. Ethan's blood ran cold. As Lily was led to a temporary room, an officer pulled Ethan aside. Sir, he said quietly, there's no missing persons report for the baby. Ethan frowned. That doesn't make sense. The officer nodded grimly. Because legally he may not exist. Ethan looked back at the small girl sitting alone in the hospital bed, staring at the door where her brother had been taken. And for the first time, a terrifying thought took root. What if the people searching for these children weren't trying to save them, but to erase them? And what Ethan would learn next about Lily's past would shake everything he thought he understood about kindness, safety, and the truth. Lily didn't sleep that night, even when the hospital lights dimmed, even when the machines hummed softly, even when exhaustion pulled at her small body like gravity. Her eyes stayed open, always watching the door, waiting. Ethan noticed at the moment he stepped back into the room. She was sitting upright in the hospital bed, knees pulled to her chest, hands folded in her lap the way adults sit at funerals. Too still, too quiet. Lily, he said softly, pulling a chair closer. You should try to rest. She shook her head without looking at him. If I sleep, she said, he might disappear. Ethan swallowed hard. A nurse entered with a clipboard. She won't leave the room, the nurse whispered to Ethan. She won't eat, won't lie down. She keeps asking if the baby's breathing. Ethan leaned closer. He's breathing, he said gently. The doctors are helping him. Lily nodded, but her fingers tightened. That's what the lady said before, she whispered. What lady? Lily hesitated. Then she spoke so quietly Ethan almost missed it. The one who took my mom. The word sat between them. Heavy, unfinished. Ethan waited. He didn't push. He'd learned long ago that some truths only come out when they feel safe. Hours later, Lily finally spoke again. They used to leave us alone, she said suddenly, staring at the wall. Just for a little while. Ethan stayed silent. At first it was daytime, she continued. Then overnight. Then longer. Her voice never wavered. That scared him more than if she had cried. I learned how to make bottles, she said. How to keep him quiet when he cried. How to hide when people came. Hide from who? Ethan asked. She shrugged. People who ask questions. A social worker returned, this time with a warm blanket and a juice box. Lily, she said softly, do you remember the last time you saw your parents? Lily's jaw tightened. My dad left first, she said. He said he'd be back before dark. Dark never ended. My mom stayed, Lily continued. She cried a lot. She wrote letters and hid them. Hid them where? The social worker asked. Lily looked at Ethan, as if asking permission. Ethan nodded. In a box, Lily said. Under the floor. Ethan's breath caught. A box? The social worker repeated. Lily nodded slowly. She said if anything happened, I had to remember the box. She said people might lie. The room went cold. That evening, Ethan's lawyer arrived. Then a child services representative. Then another officer. They spoke in low voices outside the room. Legal terms. Temporary custody. Protective placement. Ethan hated how clinical it sounded. Like Lily was an object. A file. Lily overheard everything. They're taking me away, aren't they? She asked suddenly. Ethan turned sharply. No, he said. Not if I can help it. She studied his face carefully. Adults always promise things. Adults always failed. You don't have to, she said quietly. I'm used to it. Something broke inside Ethan. That night, he sat alone in his office at the hospital. The house felt empty without her. He stared at the rain streaking the window. Memories surfaced, ones he'd buried for years. His own childhood, the nights he waited for someone who never came. The way loneliness teaches children to grow up fast. Too fast. Back in the hospital room, Lily whispered to the baby's empty crib. I tried, she said. I did everything right. Tears finally fell. Silent. Hot. She wiped them away quickly. Because crying wastes energy. And she needed energy to survive. When Ethan returned, he found her asleep at last, curled into herself, one hand gripping the edge of the blanket, like it might vanish. He sat beside her and made a decision, one that would change all of their lives. But as dawn broke, a nurse rushed in. Mr. Caldwell, she said urgently, the baby's records. There's something you need to see. Ethan stood. The nurse hesitated before continuing. The name on his file doesn't match any birth registry. Ethan felt a familiar chill creep back. And suddenly, Lily's words echoed louder than ever. People might lie. What Ethan would uncover next, hidden beneath a floorboard and buried under years of silence, would reveal a truth far more dangerous than abandonment. Ethan didn't go home. Not after what the nurse said. Not after hearing that the baby, this tiny, fragile life Lily had protected with everything she had, didn't officially exist. No birth registry. No hospital record. No name that matched any database. It was as if the child had appeared out of nowhere. Ethan stood in the hallway. Phone pressed his ear, his voice low and tight. I need everything, he said. Background checks. Missing persons. Closed cases. Anything involving an unregistered birth. There was a pause on the other end. Ethan, his lawyer replied carefully, this could open doors that don't close easily. Ethan stared through a glass window at Lily, asleep in the hospital bed, her small body finally still. They were already opened, he said, years ago. That afternoon, Child Protective Services made it official. Lily would be placed in temporary care until more information surfaced. The baby would remain hospitalized under state supervision. 2 separate rooms. 2 separate case numbers. When the social worker explained it, Lily didn't cry. She just nodded. That terrified everyone. Can I see him? She asked. Yes, the woman replied gently. Then it's okay, Lily said, as long as I can see him. Ethan followed the address Lily had whispered earlier. A rundown apartment building on the edge of town. Peeling paint, broken windows, a stairwell that smelled like damp concrete and old fear. The landlord barely looked at him. They left months ago, the man said. Didn't say where. Did they leave anything behind? Ethan asked. The landlord hesitated. There's something under the floor, he muttered. Maintenance found it, but didn't touch it. Ethan's heart began to pound. The apartment was empty. No furniture. No photos. No warmth. Just silence. Ethan knelt in the small bedroom, the one Lily had likely slept in with the baby beside her. He ran his fingers along the floorboards. Loose. One plank lifted easily. Beneath it, a metal box. Old. Scratched. Locked with a rusted latch that gave way with a snap. Ethan opened it and felt the air leave his lungs. Inside were letters. Dozens of them. Some folded neatly. Some crumpled like they'd been read over and over. Every single one addressed to the same person. To whoever finds this. The first letter was dated 3 years ago, the handwriting shaky. If you're reading this, then something has gone wrong. Please don't trust the system. Please don't let them take my children. Ethan's hands trembled. The letters told a story. A woman who had begged for help, who had reported threats, who had tried to disappear. She wrote about people watching her apartment, about men asking questions about the baby, about being told, explicitly, not to go to the hospital. They said if I did, my son wouldn't come back. Ethan's chest tightened painfully. One letter stopped him cold. Lily is stronger than she should have to be. I hate myself for needing her to be brave. But if they come for me, she needs to remember the box. Ethan closed his eyes. This wasn't neglect. This was fear. The final letter was unfinished. The ink trailed off mid-sentence. If I don't return tonight, it means they found me. Please. Nothing more. No signature. No goodbye. Ethan stood slowly. His reflection stared back at him from the dusty mirror. This wasn't just a story of abandonment. It was a story of someone running from something powerful enough to erase records, hide births, and scare a mother into vanishing. That night, Ethan returned to the hospital. Lily was awake. She looked at his face and immediately knew. You found it, she said. Yes, he replied softly. Did she say I was good? Lily asked. Ethan knelt in front of her. She said you were stronger than anyone should ever have to be. Lily nodded. She didn't come back, did she? Ethan couldn't lie. She didn't ask why. She already knew. A knock interrupted them. 2 police officers entered the room, different from before, more serious. Mr. Caldwell, one said, we need to ask you about a missing persons case reopened this morning. Ethan felt his blood run cold. Whose case? He asked. The officer glanced at Lily, then back at Ethan. The mother's, he said, and possibly the child's. Outside, sirens wailed. Inside, Lily reached for Ethan's hand for the first time and whispered something that made his stomach drop. They told her not to trust men in uniforms. What the police would uncover next wouldn't just threaten Lily's future. It would expose a secret buried deep enough to ruin lives far more powerful than hers. And once it surfaced, there would be no turning back. The police didn't wait. By dawn, the hospital floor was crawling with uniforms. Local officers, detectives, even 2 men in suits who didn't wear badges at all. Ethan noticed them immediately. They didn't look at Lily. They didn't look at the baby. They looked at him. And that was when he understood. This wasn't just a missing persons case anymore. This was something bigger. Detective Ramirez closed the door behind them. Mr. Caldwell, he said carefully, we ran the letters you found through handwriting analysis. Ethan crossed his arms. And the woman who wrote them filed multiple reports under different names over the last 5 years. Ramirez slid a folder across the table. Photographs spilled out. The same woman, different cities, different names, always pregnant, always disappearing. She was hiding, Ethan whispered. Yes, Ramirez replied, from someone with enough influence to make reports disappear. The door opened again. The 2 men in suits stepped inside. No introductions. One of them placed a thin envelope on the table. Mr. Caldwell, he said smoothly, for your own safety, we advise you to stop digging. Ethan stared at him. Why? He asked. Because a scared woman ran from you? The man smiled without warmth. She ran from a system she misunderstood. Lily's words echoed in Ethan's head. They said not to trust men in uniforms. What's in the envelope? Ethan asked. The man slid it closer. A non-disclosure agreement, with Ethan's name already typed, and beneath it, a number, 7 figures. Hush money. Ethan felt sick. You think this is about money? He said quietly. The man leaned closer. This is about keeping certain mistakes buried. That was when the twist detonated. Detective Ramirez cleared his throat. There's more, he said. We traced one of the clinic records. He turned the folder. Stamped across the page was a name Ethan recognized instantly. His own company. Caldwell Biomedical. Ethan's blood ran cold. No, he breathed. That's impossible. Ramirez met his eyes. 3 years ago, your company funded a private prenatal trial, he said. Off the books. No public oversight. Ethan staggered back in his chair. I never approved. You didn't, Ramirez said. Your board did, while you were overseas. The truth slammed into place like a loaded gun. The mother hadn't been running from criminals. She'd been running from a corporation, from a medical trial meant to disappear, from a system that decided some lives were acceptable losses. Ethan stood up slowly. You used her, he said, voice shaking. And when she tried to escape, you erased her. The man in the suit didn't deny it. She signed consent, he said. Ramirez slammed his hand on the table. She revoked it, repeatedly. Silence filled the room. Deadly silence. A scream echoed from the hallway. A nurse burst in. The baby, his vitals are crashing. Everything exploded into chaos. Doctors rushed past. Monitors screamed. Ethan ran. As he reached the NICU, he heard the words that shattered him. We don't know what's happening, the doctor said. His condition matches an experimental prenatal compound. Ethan collapsed against the wall. This wasn't coincidence. This was consequence. Inside the room, Lily stood on a chair, hands pressed to the glass. Please, she whispered. He's just a baby. Ethan joined her. Tears streamed down his face for the first time in decades. I'll fix this, he promised, no matter what it costs. Behind them, the men in suits watched silently, and one of them spoke into his phone. He knows, he said. Proceed to containment. The truth had finally surfaced, but instead of ending the nightmare, it had just put a target on everyone who knew it. And the next move wouldn't come from the police. It would come from the shadows. The hospital lights flickered. Just once. Enough to make every heart in the room skip. Ethan felt it before anyone said a word. That cold pressure in the chest. That instinct that told him something was wrong. The monitors steadied. The baby's breathing slowed. A fragile calm settled over the NICU. Too calm. Doctors whispered. Nurses exchanged looks they didn't want anyone to notice. Lily clutched Ethan's sleeve. Why is everyone quiet? She asked. Ethan didn't answer. Because he saw it. 2 new guards outside the unit. Not hospital security. Private. Earpieces. Hands never far from their jackets. Containment. The word echoed in his head. Detective Ramirez returned, his face pale. They've locked down the floor, he said under his breath. Orders came from above me. How high? Ethan asked. Ramirez swallowed. High enough that my badge suddenly means nothing. Ethan looked back through the glass at the baby. So small, so still, and suddenly he understood the real plan. They weren't here to help him survive. They were here to make sure the truth didn't. The doctor stepped out, removing his gloves. We've stabilized him, he said cautiously. But he needs a specialist. One we don't have. Then call one, Ethan snapped. The doctor hesitated. We tried, he said. The request was denied. Denied. A baby fighting for his life. Denied. A phone buzzed in Ethan's pocket. Unknown number. He answered. A calm voice spoke. You should leave the hospital, Mr. Caldwell. Ethan's jaw tightened. I'm not going anywhere. You misunderstand, the voice replied. This isn't a request. Click. The line went dead. At the same moment, Lily gasped. Where's my brother? She cried. Ethan turned. The baby's bed was being wheeled away. Different doctors. Different uniforms. No names. Stop. Ethan shouted, running forward. A guard blocked him. Authorized transfer, the man said flatly. To where? Ethan demanded. The man didn't answer. The doors closed, and the baby was gone. Lily screamed. A sound so raw it cut through every wall. Ethan dropped to his knees, holding her as she shook. They took him, she sobbed. Just like they took her. Sirens wailed outside. Police cars. Media vans. Too late. Always too late. Detective Ramirez crouched beside them. I copied the files, he whispered. Everything. Letters. Trial data. Names. Ethan looked up. "Then we're not done," he said. Ramirez nodded grimly. "But once this goes public," he warned, "there's no turning back." Ethan stared at the dark hallway where the baby had disappeared. "No," he said quietly, "there isn't." That night, as Lily slept curled against him in a hospital chair, Ethan made a promise to expose everything, to protect her, to find the baby, no matter the cost. But somewhere far away, behind locked doors and unmarked labs, someone was already preparing the next step, and this time they wouldn't make the mistake of letting witnesses survive. They thought the nightmare was over, but in reality, it had only just begun.